Hello and thank you for joining me today. Well, this is the Tuesday, July 28th edition of our video devotionals. We appreciate you being with us today, and I hope your Tuesday's going well. We're going to be in Job chapter 22 and 23 today, actually just a verse from each chapter, making comparisons to find out if it is your custom. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and we appreciate the comments and acknowledgments. Well, how about we just jump right into it? Job, of course, interesting book. One of my favorite chapters out of the entire book of Job, of the 42 chapters, is chapter 23. And normally when I'm here, I take time to almost cover the entire chapter. But today, as I was reading this morning, I noticed something that I'm going to take one verse from the previous chapter 22 and compare it to a verse found there in chapter 23. So notice in Job 22, kind of give you the setting here. You know, there's been these three friends that show up. Another one's going to show up a little bit later. But they, of course, are kind of tearing into Job. And their assessment is wrong of him. And so there's times when they speak, then Job responds. So in chapter 22, the fellow by the name of Eliphaz, he's talking. And if you go through that chapter and read it, he's really tearing into Job and basically really attacking how Job lived as far as what he did for other people. He's basically saying, you've been pretty nasty to other people. You've not helped people, is what, and kind of tore into them that way. When you get over here to verse number 24, as you're getting down close to that verse, you know, Eliphaz is basically saying, if you do right, then God's going to really bless you, all right? So notice here, and we'll look at verse 23, kind of give the context even better. Here's Eliphaz speaking to Job. If thou return to the Almighty, thou shalt be built up. Thou shalt put away iniquity far from thy tabernacles. Now verse 24, notice this. Then shalt thou lay up gold as dust, and the gold of Ophir as the stones of the brooks. He's saying, look, if you live right and do right, now bear in mind they know he had lost all his wealth. I guess they're saying, well, you lost all your wealth because you're not right with God. If you'll return back to God, then God will give you, and he's mentioning this gold, thou shalt lay up gold as dust, and the gold of Ophir as the stones of the brooks. Now think about that. There's that prosperity mindset that if you're right with God, then you're going to have things. If you're not right with God, then God's going to take it away or you won't have it. People call that kind of a prosperity gospel. Used to say, you know, people we get up and say, look, if you've got great wealth, then you must be really right with God. Well, Job's in a situation where that certainly is not the case. I know God blesses people, and I know God blesses people that are right. But to give that particular application here in Job's case totally wrong. And sometimes God doesn't give you things. He gives you the joy, love, joy, peace, you know, the fruit of the Spirit and other things. He gives you influence, and you may not hardly have two nickels to rub together, as they say. So think about that. Basically, Eliphaz is saying, if you live right, God's going to give you, we'll just use, as it says here, he's going to give you gold and unlimited almost. Then notice chapter 23 as Job begins to speak, and he's really speaking to God, who he's speaking to here. And notice what he says in verse 10, but he knoweth the way that I take. When he hath tried me, I shall come forth as gold. You know, the most important thing is for you, yourself, to be someone that God can try, that God can put the things into your life to help you become valuable to him. Not so much you getting the value and you being a rich person, as we say. There are people that God has blessed with wealth, and they oftentimes have used that wealth for the betterment of humans and mankind. And sometimes these people are in our churches, and they are great benefactors to the ministry. But the point is, this comparison between what Eliphaz says and what Job says is this: is the fact that let God be the one who makes us as gold, and not the fact that we can say, I want God to give me that gold. I want God to give me the wealth. So you be the gold that God refines, rather than expecting or desiring God to give you the things as gold is mentioned here by Eliphaz. You can be totally right with God as Job was and be under a great test. And because God allowed Satan to take those things away, then Eliphaz was way off on this one, of course. So let's let God help us be the gold that he wants us to be. And that's more importantly than amassing the gold, okay? All right, we're going to stop right there. Have a great day, safe day, healthy day. Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow. And thank you for watching.